That's okay. Good morning. So yeah, so Vivian is back, and again, we wish Paulette Mazel Tov, wonderful engagement of her son to Abigail Klein. I don't know if you know, so Abigail Klein and her son. Yeah, so that's a really intra-shul, intra-Livingston wedding. So it's going to be really, really nice. You should get married like in between the two shuls. That'd be perfect. Like maybe the Ritz Diner will like kosher themselves and like do it for.
Getting married at the Grove.
Nice, really nice.
Are they very young?
Yeah, she just graduated college, right?
She'll be 22 on July 11th.
That's the way it should be. I love that. Okay. Free Slurpees on her birthday. Okay. I wanted to share again the first piece from this tribute book, Rabbi Sachs, but because yesterday was Memorial Day, and then one of my kids said, wow, Memorial Day here is still different than Yom HaZikaron one. It's like really different. I'm like, yeah, a little bit. And so I went yesterday to the cemetery to go hang out with my dad. We put a flag in the whole bit. Yeah. So this is called A Sacred Duty from Rabbi Reuben Livingstone. And he says, I had the privilege of working with Rabbi Sachs during my years as the rabbi of the Hampstead Garden Suburb United Synagogue. So Hampstead Garden, HGSS, they call it, is really, they call it, what's the word they call it? Oh man, I forgot. I don't know this because they called me to interview for that job once a million years ago. It's like one of the pish posh synagogues in London. And then he was a senior Jewish chaplain to Her Majesty's Armed Forces. Prior to that, I was also one of his students at Jews College. I love that name, also Jews College. Like, where do you go? Jews College. Yeah, figured. He was not only an inspirational lecturer, but modeled an intellectual curiosity, openness, search for growth, aspiration, and prodigious love of books and learning. He pushed us all profoundly in that direction. I used to sit directly in front of him during his tantalizing lectures, and we often sparred around my occasionally contrarian of sometimes rather naive questions. Rabbi Sachs once explained the complicated theological idea of religious syncretism, which is the blending of two or more religious belief systems. He noted that the Jewish people in the period of the Book of Kings, particularly in the northern kingdom of Israel, were sometimes syncretists in that they effectively blended Judaism with some Canaanite beliefs and culture. Sometimes included in this category were even kings and leaders like Yerovam ben Nevat and King Menashe. By the way, we have that. We do have that fair amount, depending on what communities you're in. So I'll give you an example. In the Persian Jewish community, okay, at a funeral, they will cover the grave with a gazillion flowers. That is so not like a thing we do. We're not flowers on graves people. We're not. And it's like a thing, and then they take the rose water. So a lot of it has to do with Persian culture from back in the day. I think there are a lot of things that we do, I'm sure, that are like very American. So an American that has crept into Judaism, which has no place in Judaism whatsoever, and it's going to sound apocryphal, but the concept of an unveiling. Unveiling, we have this, the halacha says you have to have what's called hakamas matzeva. You have to erect the stone. But this thing of like, I think somebody in the funeral home business said, hey, we can upsell you. I'll get some cheesecloth from the 5 and dime store and we'll sell it for $900 and wrap it around. Ah, here it is. No such thing. Unveiling is not a thing. We use that word, and even rabbis use, oh, I have an unveiling today. But it's not really, it's hakama. And the first thing I say is, it's not an unveiling, it's hakamas matzeva. But people, I want the cheesecloth. I'm like, you want to, if it makes you feel better, like knock yourself out, you want to unwrap, demummify the gravestone, like have at it, right? I need a special cloth. Do I need and they ask me, what kind of cloth do I need? And I'm like, that's why God invented fitted sheets. There are no corners and you can't fold them. There was so this is a fascinating insight in its own right, but certainly not uncontroversial at certain levels, although in fact self-evident from Tanakh. As was my wont, I gave him a bit of a hard time on this assertion. Lecture ended, and we went on our own ways. Later that evening, I was shocked to receive a telephone call from him being Rabbi Sachs. And he said, this is Jonathan Sachs. I was troubled by something we said in the lecture today, and by our conversation, I thought I'd give you a ring. You'll know the story in the Gemara in Sanhedrin where Rav Ashi deprecated the idolatrous king Menashe and seemed to take him lightly. He then dreamt that Menashe came to him and scolded him strongly for that reference, saying, if you would have lived in my generation, you would have lifted up your long garments and run towards idolatry. Your question today was wrong and right. wrong in challenging the historicity of what I was saying, and right in challenging me not to judge too harshly the characters mentioned in Tanakh as I may have done. I'm grateful to you and just wanted to put the record straight. Have a good evening. Imagine a teacher calling you saying that. Okay. Like I will call Vivian at the class. I didn't pick on you enough today. The humility and intellectual honesty displayed in that brief conversation was exceptional. It has remained with me and impacted my life deeply ever since. Another of my cherished experiences at Rabbi Sachs was the annual Association of Jewish Ex-Servicemen and Women, they call it AJEX, remembrance parodies at the Cenotaph in London. They use a lot of words we don't know. Although technically, as chief rabbi, he led the service, and I was there as a Jewish military chaplain, he always paid enormous respect in public and in private to Jewish service in the British Armed Forces. He would consult well before the event and gave Ajax discretion in terms of the order of service. On more than one occasion, he made profound observation that stayed with me. And he says, although I have no personal experience in serving the military either in the UK or Israel, other than the experience of living through the Scud bombardments in Israel during the First Gulf War, my parents both lived through the Second World War. My mother even drove ambulances during the Blitz. They instilled in me the greatest appreciation of what those who fought on our behalf did and sacrificed. Whenever I attend this Ajax parade, I have a sense of carrying out a sacred duty on their behalf, and I'm always deeply moved and honored, and feel that they are also somehow approvingly alongside. I think that's extremely important. A message we have to give to our kids about the importance of people who give service to our country. And we talk a lot about Israel, and we should, but we have to also talk about our country and people who give service to our country. And that Memorial Day and Veterans Day is not about mattresses and cars and hot dogs and whatever, but there should be some something more to it. I also, you could pass this around. I promised you I would bring in this to see this Rav Rimon Bencher, which is really, really good. So you could start and I could maybe take the information down and add it to our list. Okay, so now we're in Bechukosai. Bechukosai, this is the last parsha in Vayikra, often read together with Bahar. And luckily for us, since it's separate, so we get two separate chapters. Rabbi Sachs did not do double parshas in the book. And he does, even though some are almost always, but this year, because it was a leap year and the way the holidays fall out, very few double parshas. So that's why, for instance, last week the laning was short. This week the laning is short. Has the Bechukasai, has the Tochacha in it, in which the reader reads the curses, but we read it in an undertone and very quickly, kind of the way most bar mitzvah boys read. So, in search of the why. The most often quoted of all of Nietzsche's remarks. So you're right, like, whoa, we're starting off with Nietzsche. Oh boy, you better put on my smart pants. Indeed, one of the most quoted sentences of all in recent times is the statement that one who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Okay, so you ever wondering, like, what am I doing? What's going on? Well, ask yourself, why? Why am I here? You ever ask yourself that question? Why am I here? What am I doing? Like, really? It's the same. It's like the same grind. It's the same issues. It's the same challenges. It's the same problems. Often people ask that in davening. Why? Like, I'm saying the same things over and over and over. Like, does it work? Like, what are we doing? I've often compared davening to, if you've ever driven, have you ever driven when you're tired? Well, now the cars drive themselves, but when they didn't do that, but when you ever drive when you're tired,
Yeah.
like a long way. Let's say you gotta go to Long Island back here, right? You've done that a few times. And on the way, and then you get home and you're like, I know I left and I know I got here, but I have no idea what happened in between, right? So sometimes I feel like that's Shemona Esrei or all of davening. Like, I know I came here, I know I said every word, and I know I finished, but what in the heck happened? Right? So you have that feeling. So, but you have to have like a why. So it's good to have whys. It's good to have to question. But if you have an answer to the why, then you can bear any how. If life has a meaning, if our own life has a purpose, if there's a task we have yet to fulfill, then something within us gives us the strength to survive suffering and sorrow. The call of the future helps us get through the pain of the present and the trauma of the past. It's so sad, and it's a huge struggle for people who feel like they have nothing to live for. It's extremely, extremely difficult. And again, it's, everybody has a lot of issues. There's no question. My wife tells me all the time I have a lot of issues. But we have, there are lots of things that we have to work through. But if you think about, well, I still have yet to do this. I'm sure we have a list of books that we want to read, right? We probably even have those books and they're sitting on the shelf and every time we walk by, like, oh. Or there's a show in the queue, or there's, a podcast I want to listen to, or there's something, or a place I want to visit. I'm always in awe of people who go places. Like they actually do it. Like they go around and it's like, wow. Like, man, you really got to see, right? Bucket list items. And if you think about it, like the Galapagos last year, right? See, even though the shul vote failed because of that, but
You know what?
even though the shul vote because you were in the Galapagos, it didn't pass.
Remember the shul vote
Oh, just think about
last year?
because you were away. You could have skewed the vote. You could have. You
Right.
could
Oh,
have.
wrong. I think you said the vote.
Oh, the boat. Yeah, the shul.
The shul vote.
Sorry, so I'm
It's
just.
all my fault.
But yeah, it's clearly. No, that's how we say that, when we're in the midst of a very important playoff run right now. I'm just telling you, and all these community events are getting in the way of my playoff game watching. It's very problematic for me. And I had a nightmare that the clinching game is going to be, if we make it to the finals, the clinching game is going to be on Shavuos, real challenge of faith.
Gosh.
I don't know what we're going to do. I'm just saying, like, I've waited 30 years for this. I just want to see it once with my son, and like then I can die in peace. That's a bucket list item, but that's out of my control. But people say like, oh, you're bad luck with like at the game. Like you think that 18,000 people and 6 at the game, and because of me, they lost. Come on. But some people really believe that. But you have to say, like, there's things that I want to do. What's worse than that is the people that have nothing that they want to do. They have no books that they want to read. They have no movies that they want to see. They have no places they ever want to visit. They have no nothing for nothing of nothing. If you can't see outside of your Dalit Amos, it becomes very challenging. Okay. So the call of the future helps us get through the pain and present and the trauma of the past. Ironically, it was Nietzsche himself who saw more clear-sightedly than anyone else that the loss of faith in God would result in the death of meaning. This is what he has his madman say as he's announcing the death of God. So look at the note on the bottom, and he quotes from the actual quote from the Maxims and Arrows section of Twilight of Idols. And then, and he says, the irony, the person who did most to popularize this quote was Viktor Frankl, survivor, God's man's and search for meaning. So here's the quote. What did we do when we unchained the earth from its sun? Whither it is moving now? Whither are we moving now? Whither, who uses the word whither? Away from all sums, are we not perpetually falling backwards, sideward, forward in all directions? Is there any up or down left? Are we not straying as though in infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder? Is there not more and more night coming all the time? Okay, this is from the Gay Science, translated by Walter Kaufman, 1974. You don't have to add that to the list. But the first of all, so again, I'm a simple person. I'm not that smart. And I read a passage like this and it's like, it doesn't do it for me. Rabbi Sachs will put it in words that for him it worked, and he'll distill it for the simpletons like me and say, okay, no, this is how it goes. It says, infinite nothing, empty space, a world without God is in ultimate sense a universe without a why. It may have beauty, grandeur, scale, and scope, but not meaning. Okay. What's the first thing you say? So wasn't it 2 years ago, and so it was a year and a half ago in the winter, one of our family, again, goals, okay, things we want to do as a family is, you'll understand who the motivation for this is we want to go see every single NHL arena. People do that for baseball parks, whatever. We want to see every NHL arena. So we got to a year and a half, we got to go to Las Vegas, beautiful Las Vegas. They have a hockey team. They won the Stanley Cup last year. They will not win it this year. And we also went to Arizona. And Arizona, which is now actually, we're very lucky that we went because Arizona is no longer a team, is no longer a franchise. They lost their franchise. And they now have been moved to Utah this coming season. And they had fights over the stadium. They weren't paying the bills. So they were actually playing their games in Arizona State University in a 5,000 seat arena, which you have to understand for a National Hockey League club to play in a 5,000 seat arena is a joke. it was great for the fans. Like if you're in that crowd and you don't get a T-shirt or your face on the jumbotron or players like giving you high fives, then you're the biggest loser of all time because there's just it's tiny, right? The reason I'm telling you this is because on the way, and this is January, on the way we drove from Las Vegas to Arizona, and we went through the Grand Canyon. Drove to the Grand Canyon. I had to see it. I've never seen the Grand Canyon in my life, and the Grand Canyon, by the way, it's snow. And when you see the vastness of the Grand Canyon, what's the first thing that a Jewish person says? You say, Manora. We say, ain't like Yaakov says, Ain't Zekim basically Shemayim. This is the house of God, and this is the gate to heaven. We say, Manora Masecha. How wondrous are your creations, God? This is the vastness. It's like, wow, it's like that's God. Or you look around the Red Rock Mountains outside of Vegas. Beautiful, beautiful. When I look around, you see something. And by the way, you don't have to go to the West Coast for that. You can see plenty of it here. Lots of things. We have lots of nice stuff to look at over here. Okay. You want to go to the Patterson Falls, let's say. The Great Falls of Patterson. This thing is the largest waterfall in New Jersey or something. You could stop off. You can dive mincha at Mosque over there. There's like one on every block. Whatever you want. That beautiful. And the way it works, and we have so many beautiful hikes here. So you want to go a little bit west, and you want to go towards the Delaware Water Gap. There's beautiful things to see. You ever go to High Point? It's the highest point in New Jersey, and you can see across Pennsylvania the different stuff. Beautiful. Or even if you want to go to the park in West Orange, if you go up Eagle Rock all the way, and I forgot what that park is called, but they have the lookout. They have a 9/11 memorial there, and the view of Manhattan. It's phenomenal. And you can say, Menorah. See, when we have a world without God is the universe without a why. But we put God in the equation right away. So then it's not just beauty, it's not just grandeur, it's something on a deeper level. So almost precisely the opposite insight occurred more than 200 years earlier to one of the most brilliant mathematicians of the 17th century, Blaise Pascal, who wrote, as if anticipation of Nietzsche, the eternal silence of these infinite spaces terrifies me. During the night of November 23rd, 1654, Pascal, then age 31, had a life-changing religious experience, which he described in the following note. Fire, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, not the philosophers and the scholars. He ended by quoting Psalm 119, I will not forget thy word. Amen. He sewed this note onto his coat, kept it with him always, and dedicated the rest of his life to exploring religious faith. Not bad, Pascal, right? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the God who speaks, who calls, who listens. The infinite spaces are not silent. Beneath and beyond them is the still, small voice of God, and it is this that gives meaning to history and to our individual lives. This is when we talk about where is God found. God's not found in the loudest moments, but God said, we say, Kol demama daka yishama, the story of Eliyahu Hanavi, and he says, where is God? The thin, still voice. We say that exact phrase before we blow the shofar. We say it in Nisan Tokef, Chol demama daka yishama. That's where God is found. I think about it. What have been your greatest religious moments? Okay, so for some people, it's their bar mitzvah. Okay, well, unlikely. Honestly, unlikely. Some people, it's their wedding. I don't know. Unlike a lot of people, don't see their wedding until they see the videotape. Because they're like, oh, they have so much going on. I have a story about a wedding I just did, but I can't say that on film. It was really interesting, really fun, really great story. And a lot of people, their greatest, something not great, but a great moment of revelation or of religious, especially if they're with someone when they pass away. Someone who passes away peacefully on this earth. They're holding your hand and they say goodbye, and it's a big thing. Or some people when you see someone in a hospital. Or when you have a meaningful conversation. It's not in the big, loud hurrah. It's certainly not going to be in shul. I'm sorry to say that. It's probably bad for my business, but it's not. In other words, you can have an uplifting davening. We can have a good Yom Kippur, but like the thing that's going to really change you, it doesn't usually happen in shul. Let's be honest. It happens in other places. So the infinite spaces are not silent. The historian J.H. Plum wrote, that's The Death of the Past, 1973. The concept that within the history of mankind itself, a process was at work which would mold his future, seems to have found its first expression among the Jews. For the Jews, said Plum, The past became more than a collection of tales. It became an intimate part of destiny, an interpretation of the future, more certain, more absolute, more comprehensive than any divination, either by the stars or oracles, could ever be. So that's the Pesach story right there, right? The past is more than a collection of tales. It's an intimate part of destiny. Everything we do, we're talking about what happened. And then we say, because of what happened, we could say, Sheyabana Beis HaMikdash from Herav Yamenim, and the temple will be rebuilt. But why? Because we recognize what happened. Jews were the first to find meaning in history. They discovered the why. I used to wonder, why is it they spent so much time in school, in Jewish day school, 12 years of Jewish day school and beyond, with Jewish history. Remember that book, Solomon Graysell,
Yes.
right?
Yes. History of the Jew.
Yeah. It's like, I hated that book.
But
But that's because I was a teenager and who wants to study it. But by the way, I felt the same about math and science too. You know, no, you guys all have smart kids. I wasn't one of them. So I just kind of, I had a good time in high school, let's put it that way. I was more of a active sort. Anyway, but when you realize like the importance of Jewish history, and when people don't know, so let's put it in modern days. So actually, a few people have asked me, it's something I want to do. I have to figure out. I'm trying to find the right way to do it, how to formulate it over like a 2 or 3 part course. Some people have asked me, and quietly, I'm not going to say who because they're almost embarrassed to say it. Is like, could we just like have a primer on like the basic history of Israel? Like people, I mean, which is fun, which makes sense. People know, like, wait, 48, 47, 56, 67, 53. When do we have Gaza? But when did we get Gaza? But I get that. That's a legit. I'm sorry. That is a legitimate concern. That's what you say to your kids, legit. That it's people don't know. What happened in 1917? Who was Sykes-Picot Agreement? Now, without becoming too bogged down in details, but just saying big adult to say, let's go over the major points and understand what the major flashpoints are because of that. That's a great thing. Now that you need maps, you need charts and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to find the right way to do it. But first of all, kol kavod to the person asked me that and saying, you know what, to be able to say that I don't know and admit that I don't know and want to know, that's great. That's super. So that's something I'm going to plan on doing. I have to figure it's like a summer project. But we want to know the history. If you want to know like what's going on right now, we have to know why. I have a very, very difficult meeting coming up in about an hour. Exactly 1 hour from now, I'm meeting with our probably presumptive soon-to-be senator. You know, it's challenging because he's not necessarily a friend. But at least he's taking the meeting with a bunch of rabbis, but to understand like why, but we have to understand the history of not only Israel, but also like our community, why we're together and trying to get these things across. It's a lot of the work that we're doing now. And it's like this behind the scenes stuff that hopefully can make a difference. I hope I have to just be very sweet and charming, but, Judaism is the oldest, deepest expression of humanity as the meaning seeking and finding animal. That's why I'm wearing a white shirt, by the way, because I'm going to put on a tie and a jacket and look like a mensch. These are, relatively speaking, modern thoughts. Okay. Oh, there it is. It came out. Private meeting with congressman. Yeah. Okay. Yet they lie at the heart of Parshas B'chukosai. If we follow the interpretation of Maimonides, the Rambam, B'chukosai begins with the blessings that will ensue if the Israelites are faithful to their mission and covenant with God. Then come the curses that will follow disobedience. They were long, terrifying, relentless, even if they end as they do with a note of consolation. Yet, despite all this, when they're in the hand of their enemies, I will not spurn them or abhor them so as to destroy them and utterly break my covenant with them, for I'm Lord their God. How, though, are we to interpret the blessing and the curse? So a lot of times we talk about blessings and curse. Maybe a lot of us were raised that way. You know, you have to do the right things and or like the reward for doing things correctly is not getting punished. We grew up in a lot of negative Judaism, a lot of burn in hell Judaism, a lot of, we call it strike by lightning Judaism. And then what the problem, now I get why we have to do that, especially when kids are young. The problem is that when they step out of the circle 3 times, they realize they didn't get struck by lightning. They're like, wait a minute. So maybe the whole foundation is false. And we want to be able to show the beauty of Judaism and the meaning of it. Sometimes it's just not possible for especially kids of a young age. But so you have to have a disciplinary effect at some point. But do we look at our performance of Judaism and saying, why is it right now Okay, I'm gonna go out, let's say I'm hungry. Why don't I just stop at the aforementioned Ritz Diner and order a, cheeseburger? So you're gonna say, Rabbi, you're lactose intolerant. This is true. This is a reason why I wouldn't do that. But why wouldn't I? So am I afraid of getting struck by lightning? I don't think so. Would there be, let's say it did. Let's say I lost my mind and I did. Would I have a tremendous amount of guilt? Oh, yeah. Oh, the guilt is a killer. To be like, but that's the first time. Second time, third time, like the usual. When you walk in, you want the usual. Rabbi, would you like the usual? The cheeseburger? By the way, I'm just full disclosure. I don't eat cheeseburgers. Okay. I don't go to the Ritz Diner. Okay. But I'm saying is that, but what's the real reason? So the Rambam actually says, he has a formulation. He says a person should say, disgusting. It's not disgusting. It's delectable, delicious. Like I wish I could eat it, but Hashem commanded us that we're not allowed to eat it. So that's why. But nothing to do with punishment necessarily. So sometimes when we look at blessings and curses, rewards and punishment, we put them in the same bucket, but we're going to see something a little different. So how do we look at blessings and curses? So if I ask you, what is a blessing? A blessing. You have children, you have grandchildren, it's a blessing. You have your health, it's a blessing. You have everything that you need, it's a blessing. And what's a curse? You have children, you have same as, right? Yeah, but sometimes sometimes you look at like how much can a person take? Is that a curse? Is we as a people, but as individuals, we often feel like when something wrong happens, something bad happens to us, we always try to attribute it to something. Oh, I got sick. Oh, because I was talking during davening.
When my youngest daughter switched from Kushner to public school, she was very distressed about all the Jewish kids in public school that didn't keep Shabbos because Mashiach's not going to come.
So
That's so sweet.
that's age appropriate.
Very distressed.
Yeah. I get it. Right. So I'll recommend. Hey, see, I'll give you a good TV recommendation show. So, we just finished. You try to find like wholesome shows that you can watch with your kids. Not that easy. So we just finished Young Sheldon. Phenomenal show. Like just sitting and eating dinner together, and like we've actually like, oh yeah, they say grace, whatever. But at the end, I'm not gonna. If you haven't seen it, I'm not gonna ruin the end for you. But the mother's a very, very like stark from Texas Baptist. Okay. And she insists that she wants her kids to get baptized. She's like, but we have to save your soul. We have to save your soul. By the way, and if you've watched Big Bang Theory, then by watching Young Sheldon, you will understand so much more. You have to rewatch Big Bang Theory, understand so many more things make sense. Okay. Anyway, it's brilliant. Actually brilliant. Chuck Lorre, nice Jewish boy, like makes these great shows. You ever watch the show he makes, Mom? That show, Mom, also really good. The whole show is about women, this group of women who are all in recovery. It's really something. Anyway, so you have to get baptized to save your soul. So my son says, what does baptized mean? He says, do we have anything like that? So my daughter said, well, we have like a bris milah. I'm like, what about mikvah? Mikvah. So he goes, do I have to get mikvatized? That's what he said. He says, do I have to get mikvatized? And then so I was with my mom on Friday, and she's talking about what the weekend plans. I said, oh, Sunday I have to go. I have a wedding. I'm marrying, so and so. So he had the moment that all my kids have had at some point with like, you're marrying someone. He goes, you're gonna cheat on mom? You're gonna marry someone else and you're married to mom? So then I'm trying to explain to him, okay. So the other sister's like, oh, he had the moment, he got it, right? So he said, well, how does somebody get married? He says, well, they have to go to a chapel. Too much Young Sheldon. And then I said, well, okay, they walk in the gallery. He's like, no, there's the guy that said, like, what is that guy? What does he do? He's like, oh, he's the prime minister. And he says, and what happens? He says, do you take him to be your lawful wedded husband? He says, I said, so that's what I do. I'm the prime minister, and that's how I marry people. Okay. But so it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's unbelievable. But so a blessing and a curse, how do we look at that? Okay. The key word of the curse is keri. The word appears 7 times and nowhere else in the entire Tanakh. It says it's on and on and on and on. The basic principle is clear. If you act towards me with keri, says God, I will act towards you with keri. But what the word means is not clear. The various translations include rebelliousness, obstinacy, indifference, hard-heartedness, and reluctance. Maimonides, however, relates it to the word mikre, meaning by chance. So, yes, kuf resh yud. Mikre, where we have the Chazal always interpreted it is that meaning like happenstance. They use it with Amalek. Asher karcha baderech. Really, karcha means that they encountered you, but karcha means that maybe you had a little bit, you were too passive, or you're too blasé about things. Or vayikar bilam. So he interprets the overall message as, if you behave as if history were mere chance and not divine providence, then, says Hashem, I will leave you to chance. The result will be that Israel, a small nation set in a highly hostile neighborhood, then and now, will eventually be defeated, devastated, and come close to destruction. It's a remarkable reading and points toward a distinction that we sometimes forget between divine punishment on the one hand and the withdrawal of divine providence on the other, what the Torah calls the hiding of the face, what we call hester panim. Hashem doesn't say, I'm not going to punish you, but I'm just going to I'm backing out. I'll be more passive. You want to be passive? I'll be passive, says God. When God punishes, he punishes the guilty. But when God hides his face, even the innocent may suffer. Which was people asking, where was God? How does God let this happen? Hashem hides his face from man when man hides his face from God. That's how Maimonides understands the parsha, and it's strikingly similar to Nietzsche's claim that God is dead. When God is eclipsed, all that remains is infinite nothing and empty space. What dies is not God, but man, the meaning-seeking animal. In his place, as Nietzsche knew, comes man, the power-seeking animal. From there is a short step to nihilism and barbarism. It doesn't take that long. To be a Jew is to have faith that our individual lives and our collective history have meaning. God is there even if we cannot feel him. He hears us even when we do not hear him. That is the blessing. It gave our people the courage to survive some of the worst blows ever to befall a people. It is what gives us as individuals the strength to come through the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. If you want to know, that's from Hamlet's famous to be or not to be, okay? Lose that faith and we lose that strength. We are left to chance. That is the curse. Chance is not kind, but blind. The curse is not a punishment, but a consequence. Okay, so a lot of it has to do with us. So I'll add to this, and we discussed it a few weeks ago before Pesach. And when, for instance, when someone is sitting Shiva, Lo Aleinu, and you go to make a Shiva call, and the bracha that you give them, we say here in America, is we say, Hamakom yinachem etchem. So what does Hamakom mean? Hamakom means God. But we don't, when you ever say, we don't use that too often to speak about God. But Hamakom literally means the place. So we're saying to her, and by the way, the Gemara says that when someone has lost all their money, you say Hamakom. When someone has lost everything, you say Hamakom. It's because if you're in a place right now where you don't think God exists, you can't see God, we're consoling them by saying God is in the equation. Even in those dark corners that you don't want to go to, but God is there. So as we say, Hashem is the place, Hashem is all encompassing, and I know it's hard for you to see it. But we're not going to say like, oh, God should come for you, God's going to provide again, because nobody wants to hear that. When you're sitting and you're mourning and you're lost, I don't want to hear that, right? So we use it kind of, but it's that idea. Don't think that God is not there. We say Hamakom. Hence the life-changing idea. Search for meaning and you will discover strength. Life is not mikre, mere chance. It's a story of which you are a part, a question to which you are the answer, a call directed to the smartphone of your soul. See that? Nietzsche never said that, smartphone of your soul. That's our people's collective destiny, within which each of us has a specific and individual purpose. Find out, and your why will carry you through almost any how. Or as Jordan Peterson puts it, again, back to Peterson, 12 Years of Life, really good book, by the way. Meaning is the way, the path of life more abundant, the place you live when you're guided by love and speaking truth, and when nothing you want or could possibly want takes any precedence over precisely that. That's a heck of a line. Hence his rule number 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. So you have to decide what's meaningful to you. And by the way, different people have different definitions of what is meaningful. Okay. I think that this notion of mikra, and if you would just, we have to take a moment often, not once in a while, but often, and look at the trajectory of our lives and ask ourselves, why did I end up in a certain place? Why did I go this way, not that way? Why did I meet the person? Why did I marry the person I married? Why, my kids went to this school, not that school. All these things are all building blocks and understanding that nothing is mikra. And my father had this saying, we actually wrote it on his gravestone. It says, he used to say, he was a man of simple faith. He would say, it's all upstairs. Like that was, it's Min Hashemayim. Whatever happens, Min Hashemayim. It happens. Okay. It's all upstairs. So the idea that life just kind of you have nothing to do. No, you're an active participant in your own destiny. You can't control it. And what you think you want may not be the best thing for you. You want maybe what's expedient, but maybe it's not the most meaningful. Which also goes back to one of my favorite ideas from Rabbi Soloveitchik. Rabbi Soloveitchik said that the sounding of the shofar on Rosh Hashanah is actually a form of tefillah, because Rosh Hashanah, on shofar, we do it in the middle of Shemona Esrei. In the middle of the repetition of Shemona Esrei, we stop and we blow the shofar. By the way, some people even do it during the silent Shemona Esrei. I think in your shul, don't they? I know they do it like 900 times, but they think in the middle of the silent Shemona Esrei. So when else do we have a mitzvah in the middle of Shemona Esrei? Like imagine stopping in the middle of Shemona Esrei, we crack out a box of matzahs, and you know what? We can't do that because then you can't say, "Oh, it's really good this year." Taking out a lulav in the middle of Shemona Esrei. No. So what? So Rabbi Soloveitchik said that shofar is actually a form of tefillah. It's a form of prayer. But then what is that prayer? You see, we don't know what to pray for. We think we know what's good for us. We think we know what we want or what we should have or what we magia lanu, but in actuality, we really don't. So the wordless prayer of the shofar is, Hashem, give us what's right for us. That I don't know how to formulate that request. So I'm going to put it with the sound of the shofar. It's solid, it's broken, it's shattered, it's solid again. I don't know, somewhere in the middle is our life. God, give us that. And if we get that, that's the tefillah we have in Rosh Hashanah. So for everything, there is a meaning. It doesn't always say, this is why such and such happens. Sometimes it says, given that such and such happened, this is what you must do. Once we find the why, even a curse can be turned into a blessing. Without the why, even a blessing can become a curse. So search for the why, and the rest will follow: strength, fulfillment, peace. The life-changing idea, number 33. Search for meaning, and you will discover strength, fulfillment, and peace. I actually said it under the chuppah, the couple that married, they went through, certain challenges, but I said, you're not defined. I say it all the time. My kids will tell you ad nauseum, you're not defined by what happens to you. You're defined by what you do with what happens to you. Okay. Or Rav Soloveitchik also used to say, the question we don't ask after something happens, it's not lama, it's lima. For what? To what end now do I have to utilize this experience towards my personal destiny? How am I going to turn this into something meaningful? Okay. And we've seen it over the year that people have taken this horrible, horrible tragedy that's happening and still happening to us. And there's so much beauty that has come out. So many beautiful things. So many amazing projects and helping one another and acts of chesed that have taken place. So that's what we do. We're lama. And God willing, we'll be able to continue that. So, we're less than 2 weeks till Shavuos. So this is good. So we're going to finish Vayikra, and then we have Bamidbar coming up. Amazing, right? I think Tuesdays are good. I like there's no holidays on Tuesdays.